Welcome to HOA Disasters, the channel where we expose the outrageous, the absurd, and the downright unbelievable stories from neighborhood hell. I'm Sugarcoat, and if you've ever dealt with an HOA that went too far, you're in the right place. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because trust me, these stories only get crazier. Alex sat on the porch, rocking gently as the morning light stretched across the neighborhood. A warm cup of coffee in hand, they murmured a quiet prayer, eyes closed, feeling the calm seep in. The porch had always been a sanctuary, a place to start the day with peace and reflection. The sudden sound of footsteps on the gravel made Alex open their eyes. Mr. Golding, the HOA president, stood at the bottom of the steps, his face set in a tight, disapproving line. He didn't bother with greetings. Instead, he held out a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," he said, his voice clipped. Alex took the paper, confusion spreading across their face. Golding didn't wait for a response. He just turned and walked back down the path, his steps purposeful, his back rigid. Unfolding the paper, Alex read the words twice to make sure they were real. A $500, 0 cents fine for unauthorized public prayer on private property. They stared at it, disbelief giving way to a surge of anger. Maria stepped out onto the porch, noticing Alex's tense posture. "What's that?" "A fine," Alex said, holding it up, "for praying on our own porch." Maria frowned, taking the paper to read it herself. "Are you serious? How is that even possible?" "I don't know," Alex replied, frustration simmering. But Golding just dropped it off and walked away like it was nothing. I didn't even get a chance to ask him what the hell this is about. They sat there for a while, processing. Maria shook her head, looking out over the neighborhood. "He's always been strict, but this is just wrong." Alex glanced at the fine again, then folded it neatly and set it on the small table by the rocking chair. "I'm not paying it," they said firmly. Maria hesitated. "Are you sure? You know how he is. If you fight it, you'll just dig in harder." "That's exactly why I'm not paying it," Alex replied. "He thinks he can bully people into following whatever rules he makes up. I'm not giving in." They stayed on the porch until the sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the lawn. Alex knew this was just the beginning, but something about the way Golding had delivered the fine didn't sit right. It felt personal, like there was something more behind it. As the morning moved on, a few neighbors passed by, giving quick glances in Alex's direction, some looking away as soon as eye contact was made. Alex couldn't shake the feeling. That word had already spread. Alex walked down the sidewalk, trying to shake off the anger from the morning encounter. The fine notice still sat folded in their pocket, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. Passing by the park, Alex noticed a group of neighbors clustered near the community garden. As they approached, the chatter abruptly stopped, and everyone looked away, pretending to be occupied with pulling weeds or adjusting flower pots. Alex kept walking, but couldn't ignore the way the whispers started up again as soon as they passed. One of the neighbors, Carol, broke away from the group and hurried to catch up. She glanced over her shoulder before speaking, her voice low. "You really should be careful," Carol said, eyes darting nervously. Alex raised an eyebrow. "Careful about what?" Carol hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "It's Golding. He's particular about what he thinks belongs here. Anything he sees as, unneighborly." "Unneighborly? You mean like praying on my own porch?" Carol didn't respond, just looked down at the ground. "He's done stuff like this before. Never this bad, but people just don't challenge him. They don't want the trouble. Alex looked at Carol, trying to read her expression. Why does he care so much? I wasn't bothering anyone. Carol shook her head. It's not just about that. Golding, he's got his own ideas about what's acceptable around here. If he thinks something doesn't fit, he finds a way to get rid of it. Most people just don't push back. Alex frowned. So, everyone just lets him bully them? Carol bit her lip. People tried once. Didn't go well. You just have to pick your battles. Alex watched as Carol hurried back to the group, who all quickly busied themselves pretending they hadn't been eavesdropping. The unease settled deeper in Alex's chest. Golding wasn't just some rule-obsessed HOA president. There was something personal in the way he handled things. As Alex continued walking home, they noticed more glances from neighbors, some sympathetic, some curious, but most avoiding direct eye contact. Back at the house, Alex reached for the mailbox, pulling it open to find a single folded piece of paper. Unfolding it, they read the message scrawled in thick, uneven letters. You. She just stopped before it gets worse. The community center was packed. Alex pushed open the heavy wooden door and immediately felt the tension in the air. Neighbors sat rigidly in their folding chairs, eyes flicking toward Alex as they made their way to the front row. The murmurs quieted as Mr. Golding took his position at the podium, his usual self-satisfied smirk firmly in place. Golding cleared his throat, tapping a stack of papers against the podium. We are here to address a recent violation of HOA policy, he began, his voice carrying a practiced authority. Namely, public displays that disrupt community harmony. Specifically, unauthorized religious demonstrations. A few neighbors whispered among themselves, but most just stared straight ahead, avoiding eye contact with Alex. Golding's gaze swept the room before landing squarely on Alex. It has come to our attention that certain individuals feel entitled to disregard community standards. This will not be tolerated. Alex stood, calmly holding the fine notice. I'd like to address that, they said, voice steady. Golding gave a brief nod, barely masking his annoyance. This rule you're citing, Alex began, is vague and selectively enforced. Prayer on a private porch hardly constitutes a disruption. In fact, this fine violates constitutional rights regarding religious expression on one's own property. Golding leaned forward, a glint of amusement in his eyes. Constitutional rights? This isn't a courtroom, Alex. This is our community. We have standards to maintain, and those standards don't include public displays that make others uncomfortable. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. Alex took a breath, choosing words carefully. You're targeting me specifically because of my religious practice. That's not maintaining harmony. That's discrimination. Golding's smile didn't falter. If anything, it grew colder. This has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with maintaining community decorum. Your actions are disruptive. Period. Alex glanced around, noting how no one seemed willing to speak in their defense. You can't just make up rules to suit your preferences, they pressed. If you're going to enforce something like this, it needs to be consistent and fair. You can't just punish people for expressing their beliefs. Golding raised a hand to silence Alex, his tone patronizing. If you don't pay the fine within 30 days, it will double. That's how it works. Disputing it here only wastes everyone's time. The room remained silent, a few heads bowed, others staring at the floor. Golding moved on to the next agenda item, ignoring Alex completely. As the meeting concluded, Alex remained standing, fists clenched, realizing that Golding wasn't just targeting them. He was making an example of them. Alex sat at the kitchen table, the fine notice crumpled next to a half-empty cup of tea. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Maria joined them, sliding into the chair opposite, her face etched with concern. "You're still thinking about it," Maria said gently. Alex nodded. "I can't just let it go. It's not just about the money. It's about the principle. He's targeting me because I prayed on our porch. That's not right." Maria hesitated. "I know. But fighting it could make things worse. You saw how everyone just sat there at the meeting, not saying a word. No one's going to back us up. They're too afraid of him." Alex rubbed their temples, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "That's exactly why I can't just back down. Years ago, I fought a similar battle. Took it all the way to the Supreme Court. We won. Established that public religious expression can't be suppressed just because it makes someone uncomfortable. It's not just about me, Maria. It's about setting a precedent." Maria looked at Alex, eyes softening. "I remember that case. You were relentless. But this is different. It's our home, our neighborhood. What if people turn on us? What if Golding makes our lives a nightmare?" Alex sighed. "He already is. If I give in now, it just teaches him he can push anyone around. It's not just the fine, it's what it stands for. He's trying to control people's lives. This whole neighborhood is afraid of him." Maria reached for Alex's hand. "Just think it through. Is it worth losing our peace, our friends? I just don't want you to carry that weight alone." Alex squeezed her hand back, grateful for her steady presence. "I can't pretend this isn't personal. When Golding made that comment months ago about keeping the neighborhood decent, I thought he was just being his usual condescending self. Now I'm starting to think he was hinting at something else, like he was laying the groundwork for this." Maria nodded slowly, her worry deepening. "I know you won't back down. Just promise me you'll be careful. He's not going to make it easy." Before Alex could respond, the computer pinged with a new email. Curious, Alex opened it and froze. The subject line read, "Religious zealots poisoning our community." As they read the message, bile rose in Alex's throat. The email was from an anonymous sender, accusing them of poisoning the neighborhood with extremist views and demanding they stop forcing their beliefs on others. Maria read over Alex's shoulder, a chill running down her spine. Who would send something like that? Alex clenched their jaw, eyes hardening. Someone who wants me to shut up. But that's not happening. Alex sat at the cluttered desk in their home office, surrounded by stacks of HOA documents and community newsletters. They had spent the past few hours combing through every piece of paper they could find, their laptop open with dozens of tabs displaying local bylaws and archived meeting minutes. It didn't make sense. None of it did. The fine for preying on their porch seemed completely out of line, but finding the exact rule that Golding claimed to be enforcing was like chasing a ghost. Eventually, Alex stumbled upon an old HOA meeting transcript from 2 years ago, the one where Golding had been appointed president. The meeting had been sparsely attended, and buried halfway through the minutes was a vague amendment. Public displays or activities that disrupt communal harmony shall be discouraged. But the real kicker was the date. It had been passed just a month after Golding moved in. Alex's eyes narrowed. This rule hadn't always been there. Golding must have proposed it himself. But why? Curiosity drove Alex deeper, pulling up complaints and fines issued over the past year. A pattern started to emerge. Several neighbors had received fines for minor religious symbols. A small cross on a door, a prayer flag, even a welcome mat with a Bible verse. All of them had quietly paid or taken down the items. As Alex scrolled through the digital archive, a thought struck them. Golden wasn't just enforcing some vague rule about harmony. He was specifically targeting anything remotely religious. Picking up the phone, Alex dialed Emily, a local journalist who had covered HOA disputes in the past. After a few rings, Emily answered, sounding half curious, half wary. "Emily, it's Alex. I think I've got something you'll want to hear." They explained the situation, detailing how the rule change had slipped through quietly, and how Golding had systematically targeted anyone expressing their faith. Emily's tone shifted from polite interest to keen attention. "That's a pattern," Emily said thoughtfully. "And if you're right, it's not just harassment. It could be a civil rights violation. I'll dig into his background, see if there's more to this. Keep me updated on anything else you find." After hanging up, Alex leaned back, satisfied that they finally had a lead. Just as they were closing their laptop, a thud from the front door startled them. Walking over, Alex found a letter shoved under the doorframe. They unfolded it slowly, recognizing the HOA's letterhead immediately. "Cease all disruptive activities immediately or face legal action. Continued violation will result in court proceedings." Alex stared at the paper, pulse pounding. It wasn't just a fine anymore. Now it was a threat of legal action. Golding was escalating. Alex walked to the neighborhood park just before dusk, hands shoved into their jacket pockets. Carol had sent a quick, cryptic message earlier. Something about needing to talk, but not in public. As Alex approached the picnic tables near the old oak tree, they noticed a small group of neighbors gathered, their faces tense and anxious. Carol waved them over, glancing around to make sure no one else was within earshot. "Thanks for coming," she whispered. "We didn't know who else to talk to." Alex took a seat, sensing the collective unease. Carol cleared her throat. "We've been talking. Turns out a lot of us have had issues with Golding, but nobody's ever pushed back before." A man named Tom spoke up, his voice low. "Last year, my wife put a small cross in the garden. Nothing flashy. A week later, we got fined for unauthorized decor. We didn't fight it, just figured it wasn't worth the hassle." Another neighbor, Jenna, nodded. "Same thing happened to us. We put up a mezuzah on the doorframe, and within days, we got a notice saying it violated exterior modification rules. We just took it down. Didn't want trouble." Carol hesitated before speaking again. "My family used to hang a prayer flag on our porch every year. Golding called it visual clutter and said it made the community look unkempt. We paid the fine and stopped putting it up. Eventually, we just moved. Couldn't take it anymore." A frail voice spoke up from the back. Martha, one of the oldest residents, slowly approached the group. Her hands trembled as she clutched a worn scarf. "I used to put a small candle in my window during the holidays, just one little light. Golding said it was a fire hazard. He threatened to report me if I didn't take it down. I didn't know what to do." Her voice cracked, and tears welled up in her eyes. Alex reached out, squeezing Martha's hand gently. "You shouldn't have had to go through that. None of you should." A tense silence fell over the group, broken only when Carol pulled out her phone. "There's something else," she said, holding it out to Alex. "I got this message from my block number. It says Golding used to work for some company that got sued for religious discrimination, and they lost. I don't know if it's true, but if it is, maybe that's why he's so hell-bent on suppressing anything religious now." Alex's mind raced, connecting the dots. If Golding had been humiliated over a religious dispute before, maybe he was projecting that bitterness onto the whole neighborhood. Alex looked around the circle of weary faces, determination hardening their resolve. They knew now that fighting back wasn't just about the fine. It was about standing up for everyone who'd been pushed into silence. The courthouse hallway echoed with hurried footsteps as Alex walked in, a folder of documents clutched tightly in their hand. The determination that had built up over days now felt like a fire burning in their chest. Filing a formal complaint against the HOA was no small step, but it had to be done. At the clerk's window, Alex presented the forms, citing constitutional violations and harassment. The clerk glanced over the papers, then looked up with a hint of surprise. "You're filing against your own HOA." Alex nodded. "It's not just about me, it's about everyone he's bullied." As the paperwork was stamped and filed, Alex could feel a sense of relief wash over them. Finally, they were doing something, fighting back instead of just enduring. On the way out, a familiar face appeared near the entrance. Emily, the local journalist. She hurried over, microphone and camera crew in tow. "Alex, we just got word that you filed a complaint against the HOA. Can we get a quick statement?" Alex hesitated but nodded. "It's about standing up to intimidation. No one should feel targeted for expressing their faith or beliefs on their own property. This isn't just about a fine. It's about protecting our rights." Emily nodded, clearly intrigued. "Do you think this will resonate with other communities facing similar HOA overreach?" "Absolutely," Alex replied. "People are tired of being controlled by overzealous HOA boards. It's time to push back." The interview aired that evening, and the response was immediate. Social media lit up with comments of support, sharing stories of HOA abuses from around the country. The local news framed it as a modern-day David versus Goliath story, a single homeowner standing up against the overreaching powers of a community board. The next morning, Alex watched a news segment featuring Golden himself. He stood stiffly in front of the community center, clearly irritated by the attention. "This has nothing to do with religion," Golding insisted, his voice measured but strained. "This is about maintaining order and harmony. One person's actions can't disturb the entire community's peace." But his smug attitude only seemed to stoke more outrage. Viewers took to social media, accusing him of being authoritarian and questioning his motives. Comments poured in, calling for investigations into HOA practices. A few days later, as Alex was preparing more evidence, an unexpected email from the HOA's legal representative appeared. The message was short and to the point. "Due to unforeseen circumstances, our office is withdrawing from representing the HOA in this matter. Please direct any further correspondence to Mr. Golding personally." Alex leaned back, stunned. Their legal support was gone. Now, Golding would be handling the case on his own. Alex couldn't help but smile. It seemed the pressure was finally getting to him. Alex walked through the neighborhood, surprised to see homemade signs popping up in windows and on lawns. "Stand with Alex," one read, while another said, "Freedom to pray." A sense of pride warmed Alex's chest. Finally, people were speaking out. A few neighbors waved as Alex passed, offering quick words of encouragement. Carol, clutching a cup of coffee on her porch, gave a thumbs up. "We've had enough of his nonsense," she called out. "You're doing the right thing." But not everyone was on board. As Alex rounded the corner, they spotted Golding patrolling the street, clipboard in hand. He was inspecting each sign, making notes, and occasionally snapping pictures. When he noticed Alex watching, he sneered. "That's unauthorized signage," he said loudly, pointing at a sign taped to Tom's mailbox. "Violation of aesthetic uniformity standards. I'll be issuing citations." Alex's stomach clenched. Golding wasn't just ignoring the backlash, he was doubling down. By the next day, notices appeared on several houses that had shown support for Alex. Non-compliant displays, they read, with fines attached for each infraction. It was clear Golding intended to make an example of anyone who stood against him. News of the fines spread fast, but so did something else. A sense of determination. The local church caught wind of the conflict and reached out to Alex directly. Pastor Bennett, a soft-spoken but resolute man, called to offer support. "We're planning a prayer rally," Bennett said. "It's time for the community to come together. You're not alone in this." When the announcement went out, the tension in the neighborhood skyrocketed. Supporters of Alex planned to attend, while those loyal to Golding grumbled about escalating hostilities. On the day of the rally, the church parking lot filled with neighbors and supporters from nearby communities. Some held candles, others carried signs demanding fairness and respect for personal beliefs. As the gathering began, Alex couldn't help but feel a swell of emotion. People were no longer just whispering their support. They were standing shoulder to shoulder, refusing to be intimidated. But just as the rally kicked off, Alex's phone buzzed with a new message from an unfamiliar number. Curious, they opened it. The text read, "Nice. My name is Jordan Hayes. I'm an attorney with the National Civil Liberties Group. I saw your case on the news. We're prepared to help you take this all the way if necessary. Call me." Alex's heart raced. Support from a national organization? This wasn't just a neighborhood battle anymore. It was about to become a fight with far-reaching consequences. The courtroom was packed. Neighbors, supporters from the rally, journalists, and curious onlookers filled every available seat. Cameras flashed as Alex walked in, flanked by Jordan Hayes, the attorney from the National Civil Liberties Group. At the opposite table sat Golding, alone, his usual confidence replaced by a tense, rigid posture. The judge, a stern-looking woman with wire-brimmed glasses, called the session to order. Golding was the first to take the stand, his voice steady but tinged with frustration. "This case is about maintaining community standards," he declared. "We have rules in place to protect harmony. Religious demonstrations that disrupt the aesthetic uniformity of the neighborhood are clearly unacceptable." Hayes leaned forward, whispering to Alex, "He's digging his own grave." When it was Alex's turn, they spoke clearly and calmly. "Your Honor, the rule in question was quietly amended by Mr. Golding shortly after he moved in. It vaguely references public disruptions without defining what those disruptions are. Yet, it has only been used to target expressions of faith." Hayes took over, calling several witnesses to testify. Tom described how his wife's garden cross had led to a fine. Jenna recalled how the small mezuzah on their door was deemed unacceptable decor. Then Martha, clutching a worn handkerchief, spoke softly about how Golding had harassed her for a single candle in her window during the holidays. Golding tried to interrupt, but the judge silenced him with a glare. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Golding," she snapped. Hayes then presented the HOA records showing how no other forms of decoration, whether seasonal, artistic, or celebratory, had been fined. Only religious symbols and practices had been targeted. The courtroom murmured as the pattern became obvious. Hayes walked over to the projector and displayed the document where Golding had pushed through the rule change. "Your Honor, this amendment was passed without proper community notice. Furthermore, it was strategically worded to be vague while selectively enforced. This isn't about harmony. It's about discrimination." Golding, visibly agitated, demanded to speak. "These are lies. I've done everything by the book. These people just don't understand the importance of order." Emily, the journalist, took the stand next. "I investigated Mr. Golding's past. He was involved in a lawsuit with his previous employer, one that he lost. The charge was religious discrimination, and the court ruled against him. He's been holding a grudge ever since." Gasps filled the room. Golding's face turned crimson. The judge, visibly annoyed now, leaned forward. Mr. Golding, did you disclose this lawsuit when you took the position of HOA president? Golding sputtered, struggling to form a coherent response. The judge cut him off. Enough. I will review the evidence and issue a ruling tomorrow. Court is adjourned. As the gavel struck, Alex glanced at Hayes, a sense of victory hovering just out of reach. Golding stormed out, brushing past reporters who peppered him with questions. Alex took a deep breath, knowing that by this time tomorrow, everything could change. The courthouse was packed once again, the tension palpable as everyone waited for the judge to enter. Alex sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped together, nerves on edge. Beside them, Hayes calmly shuffled through his notes, but even he couldn't mask the anticipation. Across the aisle, Golding sat alone, hunched over, his face pale and drawn. The door swung open, and the judge strode in, her expression firm and unreadable. She took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and looked out at the packed room. I have reviewed the evidence, testimony, and the arguments presented. This case is not just about a single fine, but about the abuse of power and the suppression of constitutional rights within the community. After careful consideration, I find the rule imposed by the HOA unconstitutional. Public religious expression on one's own private property is a fundamental right that cannot be infringed upon under the guise of maintaining communal harmony. Alex felt a rush of relief so intense it almost brought tears. Hayes gave a small, satisfied nod. The judge continued, furthermore, it is clear that the rule was selectively enforced to target religious practices, which constitutes discrimination. Therefore, I am ordering the HOA to nullify all fines issued under this rule and to pay damages to the affected residents. Additionally, I am issuing an injunction preventing the HOA from enforcing similar rules in the future. A murmur of approval rippled through the room. Golding slumped back, defeated. The judge wasn't finished. Mr. Golding, your actions have caused harm to your community. I recommend your immediate resignation from the HOA board to prevent further discord. Golding muttered something under his breath, but the judge wasn't interested. This court is adjourned. As the gavel struck, applause erupted from the audience. Alex turned to Hayes, overwhelmed. We did it, they whispered. Walking outside, Alex was met with cheering neighbors, many holding signs that read, Freedom won, and Stand with Alex. Carol hugged them, laughing through tears. Even Martha managed a proud smile, her frail hands clapping slowly. That evening, Alex invited the neighborhood to their porch for a peaceful prayer gathering. One by one, people arrived, some bringing flowers, others just coming to show support. For the first time in months, the neighborhood felt unified. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, Alex led a quiet, heartfelt prayer, thanking everyone for standing together. Near the end of the gathering, Carol approached, holding an envelope. This came for you today, she said, curiosity in her eyes. Alex opened it cautiously. The letterhead read, Office of the State Attorney General. Skimming the contents, Alex's eyes widened. The letter stated that an investigation into HOA abuses was being launched, inspired by Alex's case. Looking out at the gathered neighbors, Alex couldn't help but smile. They knew that this wasn't just a personal victory. It was a turning point for the entire community. Sometimes, standing your ground on your own porch can change the landscape for everyone. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. See you in the next one.